Hey, it's Sue in the restricted section, and I need to turn my air conditioner off. Hey, it's Sue in the restricted section. Today I'm going to do a review of MEG by Steve Alten. I read this as part of the MEG-along that Erica from The Perks of Books did. I actually had a lot of fun doing that. It was really fun to see everyone's posts on Twitter, and it's funny because I think this book is kind of polarizing. So it was interesting to see what people were thinking about it. So this book is bare bones about a giant prehistoric shark called a megalodon that has come to the surface. It was surviving down in the Mariana Trench. He explained that having to do with water temperatures. I'm not sure if that science is sound, but basically, I guess, according to Steve Alten, the water deep down in the Mariana Trench is warmer, and then there's like cold water in between, and then it gets warm again, and so the sharks survived down in the deep warm water. Anyway. Before I get into my review of this book, first of all, I want to say that it's not going to be spoiler free, so if you don't want to be spoiled for this book, maybe don't watch this. Also, I wanted to say that I realize that this book is not supposed to be some sort of masterpiece of English literature. It's just supposed to be like a fun action novel about a prehistoric shark eating people. So I get that. Like, I get that, but I'm still gonna like roast this book pretty hard probably. So let's get into it. Okay, first of all, we have our main character Jonas, who he is convinced that the megalodon exists, that he saw it when he was piloting a submersible in the Mariana Trench, and nobody believes him. And Jonah has since retired as a pilot because he was kind of forced to. But this man, Tanaka, what's his last name? I don't remember his first name, asks him to come do another dive into the Mariana Trench. Now, I'm gonna be honest, I don't really remember why Tanaka wanted him to do this dive. But for some reason, whatever reason, Jonas reluctantly agrees. And so he and Tanaka's son DJ do a dive down into the Mariana Trench. Lo and behold, what appears but a megalodon. They're like attracted to the vibrations or something of the submersibles, and so it attacks DJ's sub and kills him. The people on the surface, which would be like Tanaka and his daughter Terry and some other people, pull his sub up along with this male megalodon, which is still clamped to the sub. However, the male megalodon is no longer alive because it was attacked by a female megalodon, which is much larger than the males, I guess. So it kills the male megalodon and somehow rides this wave up out of the cold water and to the surface. So now there's this big ass female megalodon on the loose on the surface. Jonas somehow survives all this and makes it back to the surface and is fine. And so now he and several other people in the story are trying to find this megalodon. So that's the basis of the story. Probably my biggest issue with this book was just that I didn't really find it interesting. The characters were all terrible, and I'm generally someone who likes more character-driven stories, so that was maybe just my preference type of thing. But I just didn't care about any of the characters. Like, they could have all been eaten by the Meg by the end and I would have been like, yeah, awesome. And it wasn't that they were all unlikable. Some of them were, but like Jonas seemed like an okay dude. Terry was pretty likable, although she acted like a fucking whiny baby half the time. And, you know, Tanaka and DJ, they were cool, whatever, but I just didn't give a fuck about any of them. And so that was a problem for me. Also, like, the descriptions of the female characters were just, like, nearly vomit-inducing. They were just so gross. In fact, as you can see, these tabs that I have in here, those are just, I thought it would be fun to mark every time breasts were mentioned. So those are just the times breasts were mentioned in this book, which was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times, which I'm gotta be honest, I was a little disappointed that it was only 8 times, because after about halfway through the book, whenever the real shark action starts, it just fell off. But I mean, I was surprised that he didn't like sexualize the megalodon, to be honest, because every woman in this book was just only described by how sexy she was. A lot of the times it is coming from like the male character's perspectives, but not all the time. And also, like, I don't know, is that really how men think about women? I mean, I get that like when you first see someone, it is their looks that you're going to notice first before they speak or anything like that. But just the way that they were described was just kind of gross to me. And he even like, he describes one woman's breasts, which this might have been a woman Jonas was dreaming about, if I recall correctly, but describes her tan oiled breasts, 2 swollen grapefruits in the skimpy red bikini. Like, what the fuck kind of breasts look like swollen grapefruits? Like, that sounds like some bad implants to me. That's the worst way I've ever read breasts described. And so it was just kind of icky to me. It was icky to read. I did appreciate that the 2 female characters in this book are really intelligent, ambitious women. So I liked that. But like I said, Terry was a kind of a whiny little baby part of the time, which was annoying. And then the other character, which is Jonas's wife, Maggie, was like an evil bitch, basically. I didn't appreciate that about their characters. But I mean, the male characters weren't great either, so I guess I can't complain too much about the female characters being written poorly, since all of the characters were written kind of poorly. And another thing that like annoyed the shit out of me while reading this book was that for some reason he continually referred to the megalodon as the female. If I had marked every time the phrase the female was in this book, I would have run out of tabs. I could have used every tab in my house probably and run out, because it was just ridiculous. And like, yes, like I mentioned, there is briefly a male megalodon in the story, so during that part I understand needing to distinguish between the male and the female, but before and after that scene, he also still calls the megalodon the female, like all the time, even though it's literally the only megalodon around for the most part. So there was no need for it, and it just like started to get to the point where I was like getting enraged by it, because it was so fucking repetitive and annoying. And also, if he wasn't calling it the female, he was calling it the albino beast or the albino monster or just the albino. Like, we get it, it's fucking albino, we get it. So I was like, why can't you call it the Meg or the megalodon? He did that a few times, but not that much. So I was like so annoyed by that. And then also he did the same thing with like Terry. He several times referred to her as the Asian beauty. Like, just call her Terry. Ugh, it was really, really annoying. And he didn't really do that, I don't feel, with any other characters. It seemed like it was just the megalodon and Terry that he, for some reason, couldn't call them by their names. Not that the megalodon had a name, but like the Meg, I feel, is kind of its name. I mean, the book's called Meg. So that was just really repetitive and just started to enrage me. And I think that like part of why calling the megalodon the female was kind of also irritating was because I do think that sometimes men kind of use that almost in a derogatory way, like, oh, females all do this or whatever, which, you know, that's probably just me projecting that onto it. But it was annoying. And then, you know, like I said, my main issue with the book is that I just didn't find it interesting at all. And yeah, I was like really bored through most of the book and I had a hard time getting through it because I just didn't care and I didn't want to pick it up. And I think part of it was the characters, like I mentioned, but also there was just a lot about their ships, like their submersibles they were using, and also the, you know, surface ships. Is that a technical term? Probably not. That they were on and things like that, and the exact things that they were doing during their dives and this and that, and I just give zero fucks about any of that stuff. And again, that's maybe just like a personal preference thing. I was born and raised and still live in Missouri, which is nowhere near an ocean. So there's no submarines or big ships around here. So maybe just because I've never been around that stuff, I don't have much interest in it. I don't know, but for some reason I didn't care. So I was expecting more like shark attack stuff and less let me tell you about my boat stuff. So unfortunately, I did not find this book to be that fun to read. There was not that much shark attacks, in my opinion. And when there was a shark attack, it was fucking awesome. Like, dude can write a good shark attack scene. But everything else in between was just awful, in my opinion. But let's move on to the good things. Honestly, the only good thing about this book, in my opinion, was the shark attack scenes, which were ridiculous, but really fun and awesome. My edition includes MEG Origins, which was not good. I did not like MEG Origins, but the beginning of what would have been the original novel opens on a scene where a megalodon is attacking and killing a T-Rex somehow. How does that happen? One lives on land and one lives in the ocean, but whatever. It's completely ridiculous, but he somehow managed to put that scene in there and it was fucking awesome. And I think that that would have set a better stage for the novel, just being kind of a ridiculous novel that you shouldn't take too seriously. But instead I had this MEG Origins part first, which I feel like set a too serious of a tone, in my opinion. Sorry, this was supposed to be the positive part and I'm still saying negative things about it. But, and then like later on there's a scene where a character is literally like standing in the shark's mouth and it's moving around with her standing in it before it finally chomps her, and it's just like so stupid, but also fucking awesome. Like the shark attack scenes were on point, but they're just like, there wasn't enough of that to counteract how incredibly bored I was for the rest of the book. And I will also say that like, I wasn't entirely sure if this book was perhaps a parody of novels like Jaws, and because like in the beginning in MEG Origins, in the prologue, one of the characters literally says something like, "We'd need a bigger boat." Very similar to the most famous line from the movie Jaws. So that kind of made me think like, this is a parody, and in that way I could find a lot of it funny. Like the descriptions of women seem like being over the top sexualizations, like the way women are generally sexualized in these kinds of action novels, because obviously the target audience for most books like this are like men, specifically like straight men, I suppose. So if it was a parody, I could like find those things funny, but I don't really think that it is. Although I don't know. No one else seems to agree with me that maybe this book is a parody, so I guess maybe it isn't, but I wish that it was. But regardless, even if it was a parody, I didn't enjoy it, so. But I know the movie's coming out soon, and I mean, I highly doubt that I go see it just because I pretty much never go to the movies, but I do feel like this book could translate well to film. So, I mean, again, it'll probably be like ridiculous, but I feel like the movie could be good. I don't know. I think that will conclude my review of MEG. Probably needless to say, but I will not be continuing with this series. Unless maybe Erica does a read-along of the next book, then I might. I kind of feel bad that I hated this book because I love Erica, but I think she's okay with it. So if you guys have read this, let me know what you thought. There'll be some links below where you can find myself and Megan other places on the internet. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!